Welcome, Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers to a new edition of the Pewter Report Podcast, live from Tennessee, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fell 13-3 in a very, very offensive showing by the Buccaneers, especially on offense.
Yeah.
I'm Scott Reynolds. Alongside me is Josh Capo, who's been with me all week in Tennessee. The Pewter Report Podcast, energized by Celsius, as always, and we talked about it earlier this week, Josh. The Buccaneers got to use some Celsius. They certainly got to use some tonight, especially on the offensive side of the ball. This really was a game that, if we want to put it in perspective, had a lot of players that are going to get cut playing in this game.
Yep.
It's not indicative of what you're going to see on offense. None of the Fantastic Four played in this game. Those players being, of course, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage, Julio Jones. But I think it was disappointing because some of those backup players, the Scotty Millers, the Kalen Geigers, the Jarrett Stearns, Devin Tompkins being a nice catch, but we did not see those young receivers step up and make some plays like we did last week against the Dolphins.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that has been touted all offseason about this Bucs team is that they're deep. Lots and lots of depth that can help sustain the team over the course of a long season in terms of injuries. And that depth did not really show out today. And there's one particular part of the team that's going to need their depth because they keep sustaining injuries. And I think there's some cause for concern when it comes to the Bucs offensive line.
Yeah, for sure. And we need to talk about this because it looks like Aaron Stinnie suffered a significant injury. The way that Luke Gedeke played tonight in his first start, we're talking about the second-round draft pick out of Central Michigan, who's making the move from the right side to the left, from tackle to guard, from Central Michigan to the NFL. Those are three hurdles that Gedeke needs to hurdle if he wants to be in the driver's seat from that starting left guard job. That did not happen tonight. Gedeke played well until about midway through the second quarter. Then things started to unravel a little bit. Back-to-back holding penalties, the first of which negated a big run by Rachaad White.
Yep.
Then you had a sack allowed. Kyle Trask probably should have gotten rid of the ball, but it certainly was not the type of showing that a lot of people wanted to see from Gedeke. It took him a long time to get that start, which we saw him start with the ones for the first time in practice, Josh, on Thursday. But Gedeke still has some work to do. I don't see how he's going to be ready to start unless they lose Nick Leverett, which, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But it seems like Nick Leverett, with the injury to Stinnie, is the obvious choice for that starting left guard job.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Gedeke had a solid week of practice. I wouldn't say spectacular, but definitely solid. Got the start, and obviously a very disappointing performance if you're a Bucs fan. And he even told us after the game in the locker room that he wasn't very happy with his performance and that he's got to step up. I know you noted during the game one of the things that coming out of college that is part of his scouting report was hand placement. Yeah. And that he needed to improve that. And you could kind of see it on display with those two holding calls that he just didn't have his hands in the right place. Yeah. And he got caught.
Yeah, it is a technique issue. It's not about effort or ability. He's got that. But it was disappointing because, again, things were going his way until they weren't. And then it started to kind of snowball a little bit. And, right now he's the number 2 left guard behind Nick Leverett. With the injury to Aaron Stinnie, I think Stinnie probably would have been the starter on opening day just because Leverett has not really done anything to win that job yet. Stinnie has the experience from that Super Bowl year, starting those postseason games, including the win over the Chiefs in Super Bowl 55, but looks like he's going to be out for quite a while. That was a significant injury where he had to be carted off the field. So that was disappointing. One thing that never disappoints, though, is Celsius, the official energy drink of Pewter Report. Folks, if you have not tried Celsius yet, you've heard us talk about it, it's time to get with the program. And you can do that by going to an area convenience store, health and fitness store, grocery stores, starting to carry Celsius all across the country. If you're not sure where Celsius is available near you, go to Celsius.com, click on the store locator, and type in your address. You'll find all the different Celsius locations pop up around you, and then go try a couple flavors. The flavors are amazing. Orange tastes like orange. Peach Vibe tastes like peach vibe. Tropical Vibe is one of my favorite flavors, as is the new Arctic Vibe. And the great thing about Celsius is, aside from 7 essential vitamins, there's no sugar and no preservatives. That means you get all the energy without any of the crash associated with the sugar crash, because there just isn't any sugar. So once you find the flavors you like, go to Amazon, buy them in bulk, save some money with the subscribe and save option, and they ship Celsius right to you.
Yeah, I know, Scott, both you and I are East Coast guys. We're operating in Central Time Zone.
Yeah.
Nashville's been a great host city.
It has.
I don't think we would have gotten through this week if it weren't for Celsius.
That is a fact, yes. We've had some late nights on Broadway Street, and it's always good to have Celsius in the morning to give you a pick-me-up and start your day off right. We got a super chat here from Leo. Appreciate that. So we got to be signing some more offensive line depth, right? Yeah, they do have Brandon Walton, who I think is probably a better guard than he is a tackle. So that he's not the answer, but he is somebody that knows the system. He was in the practice squad last year. I think he's played credible football, adequate football. You don't want him starting, but he could probably get you out of a game if necessary.
Yep.
And they still have Josh Wells, who ideally you don't want to put him at guard. He's a better backup tackle, especially left tackle. But right now, you look at this offensive line, no Ryan Jensen. Tristan Wirfs is out maybe till the season opener with an oblique injury. And now the guy that you probably had penciled in at left guard for the season opener, at least, Aaron Stinney, going to be out sometime, if not the year. So that's disappointing. Will they have to sign someone? Yeah, maybe. And Fred, Johnson did not look well tonight either. For the second straight game, he's given up some pressure. And I want to say this was the second play of the game for Kyle Trask, where he allowed a sack. So certainly not a great showing for Fred Johnson.
No.
This offensive line did not perform well, but we saw it in practice all week. The Titans up front whipped the Buccaneers offensive line throughout the week.
Yeah, it's been consistent throughout the entire week. They bounced back a little bit on Thursday, had a decent showing, but just really disappointed all the way around here tonight. You had mentioned Fred Johnson. It's no guarantee that Tristan Wirfs is going to be back for week 1. So you're looking at depth issues across the line.
Yeah, it's certainly not what you want, especially if you're Tom Brady. If you're Tom Brady, you're taking this time off.
You just called Todd Bowles and said, "Hey, we're gonna push this return back a little bit."
Yeah, I might need some more time to think about things. But no, they do expect Tom back this week. They were not going to give us a timetable in terms of when that's going to be, but it will be this week. So maybe Tom Terrific can come in and all will be right with him. Todd Bowles, when I asked him about the play of Kyle Trask, and we'll kind of finish with the offense, we'll get into some defense, because that's where some good things did happen for the Buccaneers. Yeah. But I asked Todd Bowles if Kyle Trask took a step back. He certainly didn't take a step forward. Let's say that, Josh, to be fair. Bowles didn't think that Trask took a step back. But when you look at his statistics for the night, and statistics don't always tell the tale, because there were some turnovers where he got hit.
Yep.
And that's more on the offensive line. The interception to Joe Jones, he got pressured from Fred Johnson's guy and hit his arm a bit and caused the pass to sail and flutter. And that was an easy interception for Joe Jones. The ball wasn't anywhere near the receivers. And then you've got the other play where he stepped up into a throw, and I want to say it might have been Brandon Walton from the right guard position. He gave up some penetration, and again, the ball was knocked out of Trask's hand. He was able to recover the fumble.
Yep.
Took a nasty hit afterwards.
Ooh, into the ribs, yeah.
Yes, but Trask, 11 of 24, 105 yards, 4 sacks, and of course the interception. And that's not the stat line that you want from a guy that could be the heir apparent to Tom Brady. I don't know how you can see what you've seen from Kyle Trask so far in these preseason games and think that he is an option to start next year or whenever Tom Brady leaves, because I don't think he's come close to beating out Blaine Gabbert.
No. I mean, Gabbert didn't have a great night either, but he only really had one drive,
Yeah.
and it did stall out. But Trask he looked uncomfortable all night. He was aiming and floating passes. He had some, I want to say 2 or 3 near picks.
Yeah.
In addition to the Joe Jones interception. Lacked pocket awareness. I mean,
Yeah.
he was getting pressured, but he wasn't really moving away from it. Had a couple plays here and there where he could do it, but not in any type of consistent way. Just in general, looked like he was not comfortable, which is unfortunate because last week he looked very comfortable.
Yeah, and that's, again, what Todd Bowles is going to look for is consistency, not flashes, but consistency. Can you play well consistently? And I don't have the play-by-play for example, for Don Gardner, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he made an interception in this game. He was an inch away from an interception in last week's game against the Dolphins, and he's been pretty good in coverage overall as kind of a sleeper. And I don't think he's going to make the team per se. It depends on how he fares in special teams as opposed to a player like Delaney, but he's certainly done enough maybe to earn a spot on the practice squad.
Sure.
But you saw some consistency there. You've seen some consistency from Akunle Fatukasi, the inside linebacker, number 53, who's stacked 2 back-to-back games, really consistent, well-done performances for the undrafted free agent linebacker. And that's just kind of what you wanted to see from Kyle Trask is better pocket awareness, better pocket presence. The one thing about Trask that you note is, and you can sit there and say, well, the offensive line didn't hold up, pressure got to him and all that, but where's the sidestepping of the rush?
Right.
Where's the movement within the pocket or even getting outside the pocket? He did it a couple of times, but not enough. And you can't have turnovers at the quarterback position and win. The Bucs have experienced that too many times with the likes of the Josh Freemans, the Josh McCowns, the Mike Lennons, the Jameis Winstons. And they've been spoiled with Tom Brady, who does a tremendous job of taking care of the ball. But you can't beat your team if you're the quarterback with turnovers.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've seen now from Kyle Trask.
Yeah, I think not to put too fine a point on it, but when you look at, people are discussing, is Trask the quarterback of the future? And when you look for a starting quarterback, you look for somebody who can elevate the play of the players around them.
Yeah.
Now, yes, he's playing with depth pieces. He's playing with second teamers. He's playing with third teamers. But is he elevating their play?
Yeah.
He's really not.
Right.
We talk about he's under assault. Joe Burrow, and not to equate the two too much,
Yeah.
but Joe Burrow was under assault all year last year.
Yeah.
He helped take he kind of put the Bengals on his back for certain periods of time.
Right.
And he took them all the way to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He elevated the players around him. And
Right.
you just didn't see that out of Kyle Trask tonight.
No, you haven't. And the thing, too, is he did not have a good practice on Thursday either. And Wednesday was the better day for him this week in Tennessee. But you just have not seen him take that step to take hold of that backup quarterback job away from Blaine Gabbert, because you don't go from number 3 to number 1 in terms of the quarterback depth chart. You got to go up to number 2 first, and he's not been able to wrest that job away from Blaine Gabbert. And he's had plenty of reps to do it because Tom Brady has not been here. He's missed 7 practices total, and that's afforded Kyle Trask a lot more reps to show what he can do. And we've just seen too many interceptions during training camp. Now you're entering the 3rd preseason game, and even if Tom Brady doesn't play, and I don't want to alarm anybody, but let's say the Bucs decide not to play Tom Brady, that would not be the end of the world. Why? Because in 2020 there was no preseason. And Tom Brady didn't know the offense, and he still led the Buccaneers to the Super Bowl. So now he's year 3 into this offense. I think if Tom does come back this week as expected, then he will play. But I think it's time to kind of turn the page on the Kyle Trask experiment and start to focus on this season, getting the starters ready, and say that the grade is incomplete for Kyle Trask. And that's just not good enough to have him be a candidate to be the guy when Brady ends up leaving.
And I would say, kind of moving off of Trask, he didn't play as well as last week, and he wasn't the only one. The offensive line, obviously, we already talked about that, being a rough spot for the team. The playmakers were overall a rough spot for the team. Trask wasn't helped by, I want to say, three different receivers with some drops. Jalen Darden had one. Scotty Miller had one. Kalen Geiger Sr. had one. Rashad White with a fumble. All of those were big plays in the grand scheme of things. The drops, stalling drives out, the fumble, leading to, I believe, a field goal by the Titans on a 4-play, 0-yard drive. They still pulled out 3 points. And just overall, the offense was, I think you hit the nail on the head with the kind of the lead in there. It was offensive. Nobody really stood out on that side of the ball in a positive way, outside of maybe Keyshawn Vaughn, who had, I think, a solid game overall.
Yeah, he certainly did. The Nashville, well, I shouldn't say Nashville product, but played at Vanderbilt here in Tennessee. So he certainly had a great homecoming. Really kind of energized the Bucs ground game. 10 carries, 54 yards, a healthy 5.4-yard average. 17-yard run by Keyshawn Vaughn was the longest play of the game. Well, I'll take that back. Devin Tompkins had a 34-yard catch in the game. He was your leading receiver, though. You're speaking about not many plays. When your leading receiver's got 2 catches for 38 yards, one of them being a 34-yarder.
Tells a big story.
Yes.
And I think one of my favorite stats from this entire game is Jake Camarda doubled the Bucs offense in terms of yardage.
He did.
And then some.
He really did. And you look at Camarda punting the ball, he had a healthy 50.4-yard average. He did have one inside the 20, and then one which was a touchback. He boomed one, 65 yards. Maybe that's enough to get the people who wanted the punt god off of Jason Light's back.
65 on one punt, 62 on another. He showed he's got plenty of leg. May not be 80, but he's got plenty of leg to flip the field. I think the big issue there was while Camarda was booming him, the punt coverage team was not getting down there fast enough. So he was out kicking his coverage. And I don't know if that's a function of Camarda so much as just the Gunners didn't look like they were really moving fast enough to get down there. And then when they did get down there, they were out of position and missing tackles, which allowed the Titans return game to have a decent night.
If you're looking for any positives from special teams, we'll get to the defense in a second. There's a couple. The kick return game, I thought maybe took some strides. This has been a weak spot for the Buccaneers ever since Keith Armstrong, the special teams coordinator, has been here in Tampa, to be honest. They've not been special. But at least tonight they had 2 kickoff returns, one from Jalen Darden for 25 yards, and a better showing from Rashad White in his lone kick return tonight, a 33-yarder. So
almost broke it,
yes. So certainly a much better performance from him tonight than he showed in his preseason debut against the Dolphins. And one more thing about White, he did have to fumble. One thing I will say is the ball was high, but it was not tight. It was like this, and that's why the ball was punched out. So if you're going to make mistakes, if you're Luke Gedeke, you're going to have some holding calls due to poor hand placement. If you're Rashad White, you're going to have a fumble. Do it in the preseason, learn from it, get it on tape, get the coaching points corrected, and hopefully it doesn't reoccur during the season. The other special teams highlight, if you will, was the play of Ryan Succop.
Didn't get many opportunities, just one. But Succop hit from 52 yards out. So he's been automatic just about over his couple of years here with the Bucs from inside of, say, 45. Nice to see him put one from outside of 50 on the board. And I think between that, the miss last week from Jose Borregales, and the fact that he had a fairly tough time in joint practices, I think we're probably at the point where Ryan Succop has solidified himself as this team's kicker for the 2022 season.
And I think that you're going to see Jose Borregales have one more opportunity. It seemed like that's how this is going to play out, right? You gave Jose the first preseason game. Ryan Succop, former Tennessee Titan, gets the second one. And then I think you're going to see him being featured in practice this week. And then he'll have the third game in Indianapolis for the final preseason game. And maybe they put him on the practice squad if they can. I don't know that he's done enough to warrant him being signed away, but that's certainly the chance that you take with a young kicker. And they chose Succop over Matt Gay back in 2020. It was the right call then because of the Super Bowl win and the fact he had 136 points. But 2 years later, Matt Gay, the former Bucs draft pick, It's a Pro Bowl kicker for the Rams.
Yep.
Helped beat the Buccaneers and help win a Super Bowl.
Yep.
So do they want to let go of another young leg? Can they afford to do so? Or could they stash Jose Borregales on the practice squad? Again, they protected him every single week of the year last year, so they like his future, but he's got to have a really good showing in Indy next week.
I think part of the protection was the COVID protocols, and depending on what those look like this year, you may not see it happen nearly as much this year.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball, because that was the bright spot. When you look at the third down conversions, that's always the telltale sign of a game, and usually how it goes. That and the turnover margin. It's a big one for Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles is all about getting off the field on third downs. The Bucs offense, not very good. 2 of 13 on third downs. That's a 15.4% conversion rate on third downs. Now, the Titans, not much better. The Bucs defense did a credible job on third downs and even on fourth downs, too. On third downs, they held the Titans to 3 of 15. That's a 20% conversion rate, and the Titans went for it 3 times on fourth downs, only converted 1. So let's talk about this Bucs defense.
Sure.
Who are some of the standouts that caught your eye? You did the most impressive list. We have a couple stories up on PewterReport.com, by the way, right now. Most impressive, most disappointing, the Aaron Stinney injury story, as well as the game recap. So check those out. I'll have my Bucs 2-point conversion column up first thing in the morning. But let's talk about the defense.
Yeah, I would say, early, the JTS, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka really popped. He was in the backfield quite a bit. I think Todd Bowles even mentioned it in his post-game press conference that he really saw a lot of things that he liked in the early part of the game with the defense, and JTS, I think, really kind of exemplified that. The pass rush in general throughout the night was really solid. Pat O'Connor was disruptive. He was constantly in the backfield. I believe he had a sack and a half. He was penetrating in the run game, and they were making the Tennessee quarterbacks, both Malik Willis and Logan Whiteside, they were making them uncomfortable, and both of them had to routinely move around in the pocket, try and create out of structure. And you saw the Bucs pass rush just in general pursuing very well. They ended up with 4 sacks on the night. So I think that is probably the brightest takeaway of this game, was that pass rush was, I would say, almost incredible.
Yeah. You look at Olakunle Fatukasi, who was the leading tackler in last week's game, was also the leading tackler in this one. And this was a play you mentioned, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who's the setup man for this sack of Malik Willis by Fatukasi. And those two really did a good job getting after the quarterback. Fatukasi had a sack and a half and 9 tackles to lead the Bucs. The other inside linebacker, J.J. Russell, had 7 stops. O'Connor, as you mentioned, 6 tackles, very active up front.
Yep.
And Deitrin Snott had a good game, too. So
yes,
also 6 tackles. They both split a sack. And Andre Anthony had a sack. He was a player that flashed during the practice on Wednesday.
I think it was Thursday.
It was Thursday, yeah. He flashed on Thursday and really had a nice splash play. Got his first sack of the preseason there. So when you look at the pass rush as a whole, the Buccaneers had, 4 sacks tonight? And, if not for Malik Willis, they probably would have had more. It's just that this guy is so slippery. That was the word that Pat O'Connor used.
He very much is, and the Bucs were harassing him all night, and credit to him in terms of his ability to escape. You do have to note that the Bucs defense had trouble bringing him down, lots of missed tackles, and you see one right here with Carl Nassib. I believe this ended up setting up a 18-yard pass from Malik Willis to keep a drive alive. And I think that's important because Malik Willis is a mobile quarterback, and the Bucs are going to face, by my count, 4 mobile quarterbacks throughout the season in Patrick Mahomes, Marcus Mariota, Lamar Jackson, and Kyler Murray. Yeah. So it's important when you have those scrambling quarterbacks, those mobile quarterbacks, that when you are harassing them, that you get them down.
Yeah, you do. And folks, when it comes time for the regular season, you want to get your bets down too, right? If we're talking about, getting things down and getting things done. And the place to get all of your action is MyBookie. They've been with us for years. MyBookie offers all new customers 100% match bonus on their first deposit all the way up to $1,000. You know, MyBookie typically will do a 50% match. Take advantage of this offer right now. Get ready for football season. College football season is about a week away. The NFL season starts in just under 3 weeks. So you want to make sure that you're a MyBookie customer, and now is the time to do it with a 100% match bonus on your first deposit. Use the promo code Pewter to claim yourself a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit. Deposit $200 and play with $400 instantly. Use the promo code Pewter. Money lines, totals, everything in between. Can't find what you're looking for? Heck, Josh, you can build your own prop with MyBookie's Prop Builder. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.
So the other thing that I think is important to note, we talked about Potoa'e and how he had a really great night. When you look at the linebackers as a whole, it was kind of a great, okay, and bad.
Yeah.
I think J.J. Russell, he flashed a little bit, had a couple of decent plays there. When you talk about Todd Bowles looking for consistency, I don't know if he was extremely consistent throughout the entire night. But I would say KJ Britt had a bit of a rough game.
Yeah.
And his lack of speed, I think,
it shows up
on display tonight. Yeah. And I think it's going to show up anytime there's a quarterback like Malik Willis on the field.
Well, and at the same time, too, the Titans do so much running between the tackles. Now, they do have an off-tackle game. They do have a play-action bootleg game with Willis. But I thought this would be a game where KJ Britt really kind of shows up more in the stat sheet. 5, 6, 7 tackles, whatever. That really wasn't the case. No. It was Potoa'e who was everywhere, sideline to sideline for the Buccaneers. Britt's not going anywhere. He's going to make the team. He's a cerebral player, but that lack of athleticism and speed, it does show up. And you have to wonder now, the guy who didn't show up now for the second week really was Grant Stewart. He got hurt in the first quarter of the last game against the Dolphins, missed this one. And I know that they like Grant Stewart on special teams as a special teams tackler, but he can't play on defense. Do you swap out Potoa'e for Grant Stewart, or do you keep 5 linebackers and just have Stewart on there for special teams tackling ability? Might not be a bad idea considering the Bucs gave up a couple big punt returns tonight.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to keep Stewart off when you look at what this
coverage
special
units,
team, especially the coverage unit, because that was where Stewart really flashed last year. He was consistently great at punt coverage, and you can see what happens when he's not on the field. I think Potoa'e is going to make it very hard for the Bucs to cut him. Yeah. I think good linebacker play is hard to find in the NFL, and there's a good chance they may not be able to keep him on the practice squad. Between him and Anthony, I think those are the two guys kind of fighting for that 53rd man spot with Stewart. And both of them put up really good reasons to keep him. Yeah. And Stewart, just by default not being on the field, he wasn't able to make that case. Yeah.
I think part of the reason to answer Nate Pitt's question here, did JTS look like he was overrunning the line, not containing, opening up a huge hole for running backs? That's something that happened a little bit last year, and it's all about taking the right angles. It's all about when you're assigned the contained duties, when you need to set the edge, it's making sure you do so, but you do so in the right landmark, so you're not out too wide and you are opening up an off-tackle run. That did happen. You go back in the Jets game and you can see some bad JTS film there. That's part of the reason why he played tonight. That's what Todd Bowles said after the game. They wanted to get JTS some work because he's still a work in progress, and you have to remember all of those downs where he played inside as a nickel rusher and actually kind of thrived, creating some pressure there. But what happened was he wasn't rushing from the outside on third downs and getting those reps as an outside linebacker, which is where he's going to be playing the majority of his snaps this year, not so much inside.
Right. Yeah, I think the Bucs will be happy overall with JTS's play. Some of those things where he did allow those rush lanes, those can be coached up rather easily. And I think what he showed as a pass rusher is going to far outweigh that. I also think that with JTS, the important thing, as you noted, was just getting him the reps, getting him those consistent reps. And when you put him opposite of Shaq Barrett, with what they did today, just with their depth pieces, I think the future is bright for the Bucs pass rush.
I agree. We're going to let you know that we're going to be doing, as always, Underdog Fantasy. If you participated last year with us, we did some leagues with you Buccaneer fans, and we're going to do that again. Starting next week, we're going to be really promoting the Best Ball Mania 3 and the specific Pewter Report leagues that we're going to create on Underdog Fantasy. Make sure when you get an Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code Pewter for the sign-up bonuses. But I want to give out my email address. It's sr@pewterreport.com, sr@pewterreport.com. If you want to play me and have a fantasy draft with me, we'll do it with about 10 or a dozen people. And we can do 2 and 3 and 4 drafts depending on how many participants that you want to have. But if you want to face me in your Underdog Fantasy draft, my email address is sr@pewterreport.com. Email me, let me know, and we'll set up a time to do those drafts next week on Underdog Fantasy. This is the time, folks, whether you're joining a Pewter Report Underdog Fantasy League or doing Underdog Fantasy on your own. Now is the time to get in with the $10 million Best Ball Mania 3. And it's simply the best user interface when it comes to drafting fantasy football. What I love about Underdog Fantasy is you draft it, set it, and forget it. It's best ball tournaments. So whoever you draft, the best numbers statistically on that particular Sunday or game day, that's who you get. So if you draft Aaron Rodgers and you draft Tom Brady and Tom outshines Aaron, then you get Tom's numbers that day. And when Tom's on the bye week, then you've got Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. So that's what I love about Underdog Fantasy is you draft it in the offseason, then you set it and forget it. Underdog Fantasy, draft your teams now for a chance to win $10 million in prizes on Underdog Fantasy.
I'll tell you who had his best ball of the preseason tonight was Delaney.
Yeah.
Delaney needed to have a good day. He didn't have the greatest game last week against the Dolphins. He didn't have a great week of practice here in Tennessee. So he really needed to have a strong showing tonight, and I think he really did.
Yeah.
He had a really great pass breakup where he was against, I believe it was Treylon Burks, deep down the left sideline. Did a great job getting his head around, breaking up the pass, and just in general was giving good coverage and preventing Malik Willis from really throwing his way a ton. When Willis did throw his way, Delaney either shut down the pass or made a quick tackle. I think he had a really strong day in coverage, and in general, I think the Bucs pass defense was pretty good. They allowed a couple of plays, but a lot of those was out of structure after the routes had really broken down. It was kind of a scramble drill. And overall, I think the Bucs pass defense took a step forward from last week. Yeah,
I would agree with that. And Nate Pitts, I'm feeling it for Devin White this year. I think he'll have his best year ever. He kind of digressed each season, but I have a feeling that he'll really step up this year. You know, that's something we've noted in the joint practices with the Dolphins. You got to see it firsthand against the Titans. The pass coverage by Devin White, which has really kind of been his weakness or his Achilles heel, he still has to work on some things like shedding blocks and not overrunning the quarterback on A-gap blitzes, things like that. He's still a work in progress. But this was an area that was probably the weakest part of his game. It seems like he's made some real strides in that area, just plastering backs out of the backfield and tight ends in short underneath coverage.
Yeah. And I mean, if we're being honest, in this league that is so pass heavy, it has become the most important part of a linebacker's play, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
And to see Devin White take that step forward has been really, really nice to see.
Yeah.
I know I've been fairly critical of him in past articles that I've written about, and specifically citing that area of his game. And to see him take those strides, at least in practice, it's notable.
Yeah.
And it's a positive development for this Bucs defense.
Yeah. What also is a positive development, folks, is the fact we're over 9,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. Thanks to you, Pewter people. We love you. That's why we do this for you guys. We want to give you the best insight, education, and entertainment about your favorite team. And we appreciate all the super chats we get. It helps us go on road trips like the one here in Nashville, where we've covered both Bucs practices for you against the Titans during the week, and then here at Nissan Stadium covering the Bucs 13-3 loss to the Titans. But another way you can help us, aside from the super chats, and this is free, go to our YouTube channel, Pewter Report TV, and hit subscribe. It says subscribe. It It's free. Just hit the button. And you'll join the over 9,000 Buccaneer fans that have already done so. We want to get to 10,000, hopefully by mid-season. That's kind of the goal. We'll see how quickly we can climb. We're already on our way. But we love you, Pewter people. Thanks so much for helping out the Pewter Report YouTube channel, Pewter Report TV. And hit the like button on our videos. We've seen several likes already on this video. We appreciate that. All of our content, whether it's press conference clips, interviews, or the Pewter Report podcast, when you hit the like buttons on all those pieces we do on our YouTube channel, it helps our algorithm. It gets us in front of more Buccaneer fans just like you and gets them into our content. Make sure that you're also visiting pewterreport.com for all of the Bucs post-game coverage. We'll continue this tomorrow with the SR's, I should say my 2-point conversion post-game column tomorrow morning. We'll have Todd Bowles in the early afternoon with his press conference with an update on Aaron Stinnie. I know what he's going to say. He's going to say, we don't know yet until we get the results back from the MRIs and the tests. We got to wait for the swelling to go down to do the MRIs. We've heard that before. It looked like a significant injury. It
did. And given the fact that we still don't know quite what's going on with Ryan Jensen's injury, we may not know Aaron Stinnie's till, I don't know, the bye week. And then, Scott, I would say one thing. I think you've reached the status where you can speak in the third person. You can say SR's 2-point conversion.
Well, okay. You said it, not me. But
one thing I think is really noteworthy, and Scott, you and I have had some conversations about this. The Bucs made a change at their coaching staff this offseason in terms of the inside linebackers coach, correct?
Correct.
Who did they move there?
Well, they moved Larry Foote, who was the outside linebackers coach, did a great job because each year Foote was outside coaching that position. You had a Pro Bowler in Shaq Barrett in 2019. You had a Pro Bowler in JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul, in 2020. And then Shaq made the Pro Bowl again last year. Now you're moving him inside where he played for Todd Bowles in Arizona, but more noteworthy in Pittsburgh, where he was on the Pittsburgh team playing with Byron Leftwich and in a sense for Bruce Arians. He was on the offensive side as the receivers coach and the offensive coordinator. But now you have a new outside linebackers coach in Bob Sanders. But I like both of these moves. Right. I think Foote going inside is going to reach and speak to Devin White in a different, unique way, because they're both kind of intense guys that kind of feed off of the instinctual part of the game. And then I think Bob Sanders is a great technician who's going to get the best out of JTS and really accelerate his learning curve.
Yeah, I think Foote has, at least through training camp here, I think Foote has done an absolutely amazing job with that group.
Yeah.
Levante David has been picking off Tom Brady, at multiple practices, which is
in the red zone,
which
does not happen.
Does not happen.
Yeah.
And so I think that you're seeing Levante kind of elevate his game here, kind of towards the end of his career.
In a contract year.
Devin White having probably the best training camp of his career so far, taking that step forward in pass coverage, that, like you mentioned, the ability for those two to connect because they're so similar. But what's interesting is with Fatukasi, an undrafted free agent, just absolutely balling out, making a case to stay to make this final roster.
Right.
And what's interesting was we interviewed him after the game. He is so unassuming.
Yeah.
He is not that fired up Devin White personality.
Right.
He's much more
he's more like Levante.
Much more cerebral, just a little bit more soft-spoken, but he seems to really be taking to that coaching very well. He also noted the coaching that he received at, I believe, Rutgers with Greg Schiano, and just taking it and elevating his game and showing that he can maybe play at this level.
Yeah.
So Foote's doing a great job.
I agree. I think it's a great move. I loved it when it happened. And I love the addition of Bob Sanders, too. I think he's a great technician, attention to detail guy that fits what Todd Bowles wants to do. And I really think that he's going to work wonders with the outside linebackers. The defensive line is interesting because Deidrin Sanat kind of showed up tonight. He really had to. Pat O'Connor continues to really shine in the preseason now. He had a sack last week, 6 tackles, half a sack tonight, plays just about everywhere in special teams. So he's such a key cog there. I would not be surprised if either he or KJ Britt get the special teams captain. Usually goes to the linebackers. Kevin Minter had it the last couple of years. It probably will go to Britt, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got it. But he wasn't the only defensive lineman that made a play tonight. Willington Prevalon! He also had a big play. He got a big-time hit on the quarterback to create the interception for Don Garner.
Yeah, absolutely. He was in the backfield a few different times.
Yeah.
I think he flashed a little bit, made a case to potentially make it past this next round of cuts, which I believe has to be done by 4 p.m. on Tuesday.
Yes.
The Bucs roster, which has been whittled down from 90 to 85 this past week, now needs to go from 85 to 80, leading into the Indianapolis game. And then at that point, they'll have to do, if my math is right, 27 cuts to get down to the final 53 for the first week of the regular season. Yeah. So Prevalon showed up. You had a lot of players on defense showed up. Unfortunately, not so much on offense. And they're going to make it very hard for this coaching staff to really figure out who the best 53 is. Going back to O'Connor, I think he's going to make it very hard for this coaching staff to keep him off the field, even with a lot of talent ahead of him. You've got the rookie, Logan Hall, who was picked with the first pick of the second round.
He played better tonight.
He did.
Yeah,
he did. You have, of course, Akeem Hicks, a late offseason addition, which I think has already paid dividends in terms of his ability to help develop Hall, as well as just what he's shown in practice. He looks like he's completely healthy. Yes, that's for sure. And if he can stay that way, I think he's going to be kind of a linchpin to this defense. Of course, you've got Pro Bowler Vita Vea.
That's right.
And Will Golston, who has been Mr. Steady across, I think this is going to be his 10th year. Yeah,
10th year.
So you've got all these people ahead of O'Connor, but I think he delivers, and you and I talked about it a little bit during the game, he delivers something that none of them really have, which is he's the fastest off the line.
Yeah, he really is.
And if they're going to do these stunts and twists, he's the perfect player to do that. So I think there are going to be some packages that may feature him, even with all this talent ahead of him.
nickel rush. And Dietrich and Sanat, right, when you do the math on the 6 defensive linemen they'll keep, Rakeem Nunez Roches, otherwise known as Nacho, he'll be the backup nose tackle again, great against the run. But Deidre and Sanat really starting to make a case for himself. He's a veteran player that is strictly a nose tackle, and they already have one of those guys in Nacho. So it might be difficult to find a way to keep him, but maybe Sanat is one of those veterans on the practice squad that if there is an injury up front, he can come on and play for you. The Buccaneers offense, we start off the podcast talking about how offensive the numbers were. 2 of 13 on third downs. They only had 174 yards. Now, keep in mind, Leonard Fournette had a 10-yard rush to start the game. They only had 164 yards after that. The Bucs defense did a pretty good job against the Titans. Again, we talked about the fact that the Titans were held at just 20% on third downs and only 1 of 3 on fourth down conversions. And Tennessee had 255 yards. Now, keep in mind, this is without King Henry. This is without Ryan Tannehill. So they did not have some of their big guns, obviously, on the offensive side. Malik Willis ran for his life. He was forced to scramble, and he got away because he's just so darn slippery.
But he ended up being their leading rusher for the night, I believe.
Yes, yeah. When you look at Willis, passed for only 7 of 17 passes, sacked 3 times, did have the touchdown, and had 80 yards passing, but had 42 yards on the ground, including a 24-yard scramble, which was the longest run of the night. So a better showing for the Bucs defense, but not what you wanted at all from the Bucs offense. And, of course, the big news, Aaron Stinney lost maybe for the season, but certainly for a while. And Kyle Trask just did not take the step forward that we maybe were hoping, or at least anticipating perhaps, after a pretty good showing against the Dolphins.
Yeah. I see a comment here in the chat here. Wow, our line is going to be worse than Cincinnati's last year. I don't think we're to that point. All right. Keep in mind who was in. Tristan Wirfs' injury should not keep him out for a chunk of the regular season. I think there's a chance that he's back by week 1, maybe week 2 or 3. You still have Donovan Smith, he's had an amazing camp. And you're talking about a guy who has literally improved every single year of his career. That's not something many football players can say. I mean, there is some variation to most players' games, but not to Donovan Smith. He just continues to improve. There's 2 spots on the offensive line that have been that should be good. You've got Shaq Mason at the right guard. Ever since his rookie year, he's been a plus offensive lineman. Robert Hainsey, I think he looked fairly decent tonight, and he's had a good camp overall. So now you're looking at one spot, which is definitely a question mark in the left guard, and I'm sure the Bucs would have rather had Aaron Stinney as a part of that.
at least as an option.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Because of the experience. And you mentioned it too on the 2 practices that we saw this week in Tennessee, really kind of your first exposure to training camp for the Buccaneers living out of state. But Donovan Smith made a huge impression on you. And as good as Tristan Wirfs is, and he gets a lot of praise and deservedly so, it wasn't just Donovan Smith, what he was able to do in those one-on-one pass protection drills where he was just about flawless, but the leadership that we heard and we saw from Donovan Smith too. He's just a player that's really just come into his own over the last couple of years. And he doesn't have just the physical freak ability and size that Tristan Wirfs has, but he's a damn good left tackle.
He is, and he's got great technique. And I say this in a very positive way. He's just a bad man.
Yeah,
he really is. You can see he's developed kind of a signature move, and I think we call it a
snatch and grab,
yep. Where he pulls you in and just pulls you down.
Yeah,
and he was executing it flawlessly throughout the week. Nobody could beat him. Bud Dupree just got worked.
Yeah.
And I think, again, we don't want to be alarmist about this. You've still got 3 to 4 good offensive linemen that you should be able to count on.
Yeah.
The Bucs do have a big question mark at left guard. I think right now Nick Leverett is by default your starter to start off with.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the Bucs make any roster moves there. They stood pat with the center position, right, with Robert Hainsey and Nick Leverett. But now if Nick Leverett is going to be your starting left guard, he really can't be the backup center because he is by default. But then you're sliding him over from left guard to center if something happens to Robert Hainsey. Now you're inserting a guard, so you're kind of making 2 positions weak. So you got to cross your fingers and hope that the offensive line does not suffer any more injuries, because that's been the position that's been hit the hardest with injuries so far in training camp.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, and Todd Bowles said this to almost every question we asked him, is we're going to look at the tape. And I think it's important that they go back, they look at the tape. They've been doing a lot of experimenting this offseason, putting a lot of players at a lot of different positions on this offensive line. They need to look at the tape. They need to make some commitments and just roll with that.
Yeah.
To get this unit with some continuity and get them prepared for week 1.
Yeah. Folks, we have a new advertising partner that I'm super excited about. It's Florida Lanai Curtains. You know why I'm excited about them? Because I actually have Florida Lanai curtains out on my lanai, and boy, do they make an absolute difference. They give you the privacy and the shade that you are looking for. Privacy on demand outdoor curtains are made from some of the most well-known Sunbrella brand of marine canvas, backed by a 10-year fade-free warranty and available in over 100 colors that will enhance the look and comfort of any outdoor space. That's what I liked about it, folks, is the fact that these curtains are marine grade. They're durable. They hold up to weather, to the sun. And we live in Florida, right? Because we love the warm weather. However, the 2 most common complaints about spending time outside at our Florida homes is the lack of privacy, where homes are being built closer and closer to one another in the brutal heat of the warmer months. Lack of privacy and too much sun can drive you indoors and keep you from enjoying your screened enclosed pool or other outdoor spaces as much as you like. That's where Florida Lanai Curtains comes in. They solve both of these problems with the Privacy on Demand patented outdoor privacy curtain system and the custom-made screen enclosure shade sails. Their flexible installation options and high-quality products give you privacy and shade just where you need them. Their unique shade sails are made from a Sola mesh, which has a 10-year warranty against degradation, and they're built to give you the shade and UV protection for years to come. Folks, if you need privacy or shade and you want more freedom to enjoy your outdoor spaces, visit the Florida Lanai Curtains website at lanaiCurtains.com to find out more about their amazing custom products and do your own hassle-free instant online estimate. Call 813-337-2511 to schedule a free in-home consultation. That's Florida Lanai Curtains at lanaiCurtains.com. It's a great investment. It absolutely is something I should have done years ago, but we love our outdoor curtains from Florida Lanai Curtains.
You know, Scott, you mentioned that I don't live in Florida. I used to live in Florida. I grew up in Florida.
That's right.
I moved back in 2016. I moved away in 2019. Do you know why I moved away?
Why did you move away?
Well, lack of privacy and too much sun. If I had
If you
known
would've had-
about Florida Lanai curtains, I may still be a Floridian.
Exactly.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. What's unfortunate is for all those Pewter people out there that are not subscribed to our Pewter Report TV YouTube channel. Don't be that guy or gal. Make sure that you are a subscriber. We appreciate the over 9,000 of you who have done so. It's been a late night here and a not so fun night, unless you like boring football and good defense. And we saw both of those tonight. The Bucs offense was truly offensive, as we talked about. Scotty Miller didn't help himself with another failed connection down the right sidelines. Last week, it was a little bit of an overthrow. This week, it was a pass that hit him in the hands and he should have caught. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see if he has a chance to make the team. Next week will be a big week for a lot of Buccaneers, as Josh talked about. That's the final preseason game. We'll do their final roster cutdowns after that. Make sure you stay tuned to pewterreport.com for all the stories and content we have. And I've got an SR's Fab 5 that dropped yesterday afternoon. Read that. Josh Capo, what are you going to be featuring in this week's Grinding the Tape?
I think the story of the night was the offensive line. And so that's definitely something I'm going to go back. I'm going to take a look at, hopefully break down some film and share with the Pewter Report readers just kind of what the nuances of that unit were for tonight. Were there any highlights? If so, who? And then where can the Bucs go from here?
Yeah, well, listen, I tell you, this was probably – I'm just going to say this is the best Pewter Report podcast we've ever done. Unfortunately, this was not the best preseason game the Bucs have ever played. But at least, you got a good podcast, people. And we appreciate all of you Pewter people for tuning in and for supporting our endeavors with the Super Chats and just your viewership. It means a lot. We're going to be back Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday next week as the Bucs return to Tampa for a week's worth of practice. And then they head out to Indianapolis to play the Colts next Saturday in the preseason finale. So for Josh Capo, I'm Scott Reynolds, live here in Tennessee at Nissan Stadium. We are energized by Celsius tonight. Can't say the same for the Bucs offense, but we will see you on Tuesday for the next edition of the Pewter Report